Have you ever felt like your life was spiraling out of control, only to discover that the person you trusted the most was the one who pushed you off the edge? That was the gut-wrenching realization that tore my world apart, leaving me with a broken heart and a thirst for revenge. In the span of a few days, I watched my carefully constructed life crumble, and I learned just how far betrayal could cut. But instead of sinking into despair, I did something unexpected. I made a plan. Not just any plan, but a plan to get back what I had lost and then some. It started with a whisper of doubt in my mind, something that didn't make sense at first. But that feeling gnawed at me, getting louder and louder, until it led to a discovery I'll never forget. The day I found out the truth was the day everything changed. Rhonda, my wife, wasn't just the woman I loved. She was also the woman who had deceived me in ways I couldn't have imagined. It was a Thursday night, one of those nights that seemed normal on the surface, but underneath, the tension was palpable. Rhonda and I had been married for 5 years, and though things hadn't always been perfect, I had never suspected her of being unfaithful. But the signs were there if you knew where to look. The late-night texts, the sudden phone calls, and the long, unexplained absences. But it wasn't until that fateful Thursday that everything came crashing down. I returned home from work early, hoping to surprise Rhonda. I didn't expect anything unusual, but the moment I walked in, I knew something was off. The house was too quiet, and the faint scent of perfume lingered in the air, one I didn't recognize. Rhonda was in the living room, sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, eyes glued to the screen. She smiled at me, but it was a forced smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice just a little too high-pitched. "I didn't expect you home so early." I gave her a hug, kissing her lightly on the cheek. "I thought I'd get a jump on the weekend. What's up with you?" She seemed flustered for a moment, her hand tightening around the phone in her lap. "Oh, just tired," she replied, a little too quickly. "It's been a long day." But I wasn't fooled. The change in her behavior was subtle but undeniable. There was something in the way she avoided my gaze, the way she clutched her phone like a lifeline. I'd seen that look before, back when I had caught a friend checking his phone too many times, only to find out he was hiding an affair. I knew I had to find out what was going on. The question was, how? The following days were a blur. I spent hours replaying our interactions, looking for clues, for cracks in the veneer of normalcy. And then I found it. One evening, as I checked my email, I noticed a new message on her shared calendar. It was from John, someone I'd met once or twice at a party, a man I'd always found a little too charming. He was listed as her work contact, but the timing was off. The message wasn't about work. It was about a special dinner they were supposed to have that weekend. My blood ran cold. I knew I couldn't confront her yet. I had to be smarter than that. Instead, I decided to gather evidence. I did what any man who felt betrayed would do. I bought a set of hidden cameras, small, discreet. They could capture everything without anyone noticing. I set them up in places where I knew she would spend most of her time: the living room, the hallway, and the bedroom. The first few days passed in agonizing silence. I went about my routine, pretending everything was normal while the cameras captured every interaction. I watched Rhonda's every move, hoping to find something that would give me the proof I needed. The footage was revealing, but it wasn't until the third night that I saw what I had been dreading. There, in the middle of the night, as I watched the live feed from my phone, I saw it. Rhonda and John, together, laughing and kissing, their faces flushed with excitement. The betrayal was real. It wasn't just a kiss or a flirtation. It was a full-blown affair. They had been meeting behind my back for months, laughing at the idea of me being completely oblivious to their secret life. The following days were filled with a white-hot rage that I had never felt before. The man I had considered a friend, the woman I had promised my life to, they had both destroyed everything. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I began plotting my revenge, and I didn't just want them to hurt. I wanted them to lose everything. I planned everything down to the smallest detail. I knew I had to keep up the appearance of normalcy at home, so I played my part well. I pretended like I had no idea about their affair. I acted as if I was completely oblivious to their lies, all the while preparing for the storm that was about to hit. The first step was to confront John. I contacted him directly, asking him to meet me in person. I knew this would throw him off, but I needed him to panic. I met him at a bar under the guise of having a man-to-man talk. He looked nervous from the moment he saw me, his eyes darting to the door like he was already planning an escape route. "John, we need to talk," I said, my voice cold, measured. "You've been seeing my wife, haven't you?" He blanched. "What are you talking about?" I slid my phone across the table, showing him the footage. "This," I said, pointing to the video of him and Rhonda. "You've been seeing her behind my back." John looked at the screen, his face going pale. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "I don't know what to say," he finally stammered. I leaned in, my voice low and deadly. "Don't worry, I've got a plan. It's already too late for you. But you can either go down quietly or you can watch your world burn. It's up to you." The power I felt in that moment was intoxicating. I wasn't just a man betrayed. I was a man in control, and I was going to make sure that John and Rhonda felt every ounce of pain they had caused me. Over the next few weeks, I took action. I set up a meeting with a lawyer who specializes in divorce and personal injury. I explained the entire situation, showing her the evidence I had gathered. She was appalled but impressed by the thoroughness of my plan. We worked together to arrange the perfect payback. I also contacted several of John's other partners. I didn't have to go far. It turned out that his reputation as a ladies' man was well known, and many of the women he had been seeing were eager to hear the truth. I gathered as much information as I could, phone numbers, emails, addresses, anything that would be useful in taking down both John and Rhonda. Then, I set everything in motion. I arranged for divorce papers to be delivered to Rhonda while she was away on a business trip, just as I had planned. But it wasn't just about the divorce. I had also arranged for her friends to be notified of the affair and for John's boss to be made aware of his unprofessional behavior. The plan was executed flawlessly. Rhonda returned to a completely different world, one where she was no longer welcome. I made sure she was served with divorce papers as soon as she landed, and I left her no choice but to sign them. The aftermath of the betrayal and revenge was swift and unforgiving. John was fired from his job after his boss learned about the affair. Rhonda, left without the support of her friends, found herself isolated. The public shame of being exposed in such a brutal way weighed heavily on both of them. As for me, I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. Yes, they had been punished, but something was missing. The rage that had fueled me for so long had dissipated, and I was left with an unsettling emptiness. In the months that followed, I began to rebuild my life. I took a job that allowed me to travel, becoming a truck driver, and over time I found peace in the solitude of the open road. Rhonda and John, though, were never far from my mind. 5 years later, I found myself back in town. The road had been my escape, but it had also given me the time and space I needed to heal. I had learned that revenge, while sweet, didn't bring lasting peace. I was having dinner at a small restaurant when I saw her, Rhonda. She was sitting alone at a table, looking older and weaker than I remembered. When our eyes met, she froze, her face flushed with emotion. She stood up and walked over to me, hesitant but determined. I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I was wrong and I regret everything." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The woman who had once been my everything was now nothing more than a stranger. I didn't know what to say. After everything that had happened, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and pity. We talked for hours that night, and as the conversation flowed, we found common ground. Rhonda had turned her life around, becoming a nurse and working hard to make amends. I had moved on as well, finding solace in my own journey. But despite all the pain we had caused each other, we both realized that we could never go back to what we once had. Instead, we made a strange, unexpected arrangement. We became friends with benefits. It wasn't love, but it was a form of redemption, something we both needed to heal from the wounds we had inflicted on one another. Life had a funny way of coming full circle. We were no longer the people we once were, but through time and forgiveness, we had both found peace in our own way.